Okay, so now I would like to give a word to our next speaker, which is Galina Prokudina, and she will be talk about teaching languages.
Hello, my name is Galina Prokudina. I study at Masaryk University at the Department of Art, and I teach language. I teach Russian, and today I'll tell you some words about a specific concept for different nations and the ways of the explanation during teaching languages. My researches partly are based on the associative experiment. At the beginning, I'll tell several words about one ancient legend. The next, I'll tell the basic information on scientific study of cognitive linguistics. After that, I'll give the examples of the existence national specific concepts. After that, I'll introduce some results of my own researches. And I'll tell you some words about teaching languages and the way of explanation of concepts. I would like to begin with one ancient legend about the Tower of Babel. It is an origin myth meant to explain why the world's people speak different languages. You know that at the beginning all people speak only one languages, and of course they understand each other, but then after that they decided to build a high tower, and God, observing the city and tower, confound their speech so that they can't understand no longer each other, and all people began to speak different languages in different countries. And after that, all people, of course, try to break this barrier, this language barrier. And of course, you know that language barrier exists not only between different countries and different nationalities, because a language barrier exists in society. For example, when professor will go on the building and began to speak with workers, maybe they will speak different languages, and they won't understand each other, and it depends on social classes, levels of education, or levels of our education, for of course, and our behavior, and education, and our parents, our families, and so on. I do my researches in area of cognitive linguistics. This scientific study has appeared in the 70s of the 20th century. Cognitive linguistics refers to the branch of linguistics that interprets language in terms of the concepts, sometimes universal, sometimes specific to a particular tongue, which underlies its forms. And cognitive linguistics can help to break language barrier, because research in this area studies correlation between language and between consciousness, and for example, cognitive linguistics improves our understanding foreign languages because it explores the concepts linked to words. linked to words. Concept is one of the main element, is one of the main terms of cognitive linguistics. It's an unitary element of collective knowledge and consciousness, which has verbal expression, which send us to high mental values, and usually is also specified by ethnocultural identity, as usually. But from time to time, concepts have not verbal expression. But when they have not verbal expression, maybe it will be better when we study it in psychology and sociology. But cognitive linguistics deals with words and with concepts which have verbal expression, and of course it's more simple. It's more simple to study words, to study verbal elements for linguists, of course, because when some concepts don't have one word verbal expression, we need verbal imaging, and we need describing. We need describing this concept, which is connected with reals of nation or with reals of social class. When some concepts has only several social classes or several nations, I'd like to give you some examples of specific concepts for nations. For example, the Inuits have 7 words for the designation of the concept snow. Yes, the Inuits live in very cold area, and they have snow just all year. Snow, and they have more than 100 different compositions with the same word, with any parts of speech. For example, for European people, for Czech people, it's very difficult to introduce 7 words for snow. Maybe in Brno it's it's not so often. The Caucasus nations have many words for the horse's wound, because this animal plays a significant role in their everyday life. In this part of the world, a horse is taken as a breadwinner. This is a very important animal. They can't introduce their life without it. For example, it connects not only with words, which one words or with temperature, area, reals, and so on, but without tradition, and believing, some introducing about life. For example, the English believe that a black cat crossing the road brings them good luck. But Slavonic people firmly believe that a black cat is one of the symbols of happiness, and Slavonic peoples believe that a black cat can cause a disaster. A black cat, for English people, a black cat is one of the symbols of happiness and luck, and Slavonic nations firmly believe that black cat it's some can cause a disaster, and it's a very bad scene for Slavonic people. The Russian have one-word concepts for the one-word concepts for the concepts such as 24 hours, and you can read it 24 hours. We can translate it only by several words in English or in other languages, but we can. For example, the Russian nation, the Russians can tell only sutki, and for example, boiling water. It's only one word expression. For example, specific concepts for Russian, like a Russian doll or boiling water. I told it, and однофамилец, a person bearing the same surname as. We should tell just too much words, and in Russian we can tell only one word. And other examples of other examples of existence of these concepts. For example, I'll give a question, which is the difference between чувства, feeling, and ощущение, sense, истина и правда, truth. In English is just truth, only one word. And what does it mean, причуда? And in English it may be whim, free, caprice, fancy, oddity, vagary, too much words, but Russians have only one word, and it's original. It's original word. Other languages have this word, like for example, snow for Inuits, or how horses wound for Caucasus people. When students learn languages, from time to time they can't find equivalents for their native languages, and they tell English is very poor language, and I can impress myself and in Czech language, because Czech is very poor. For example, my Bulgarian students tell me it, but it's not truth, because just we have different traditions, we have different reals, and it has a big, a great influence on our languages, we have language lacunes. Lacune is element of our speech when in some languages have not equivalent in other language for some words. For example, like однофамилец, the person which has the same name has not equivalent in English or in Bulgarian language. For example, причуда is original word, and Russians have some cakes with it, and maybe other people from other countries will not understand it. For example, чувство и ощущение, like feeling and senses. One word is, it means is deeper. In a person we have it on soul, it is more emotional. And ощущение is not so deep. It's it's maybe partly it's just brain versus soul. Brain it's about ощущение, senses, and чувства, feelings. It's about soul. And other words. When we study concepts, we deal with core of concepts with near periphery, far periphery, and extreme periphery, and it depends on frequency. It depends on frequency. When we study concepts, we study all means in the dictionaries, on the internet contents, and in some forums, in magazines, and mass media, and I do associative experiment with people. For example, it is we have different types of associative experiments. For example, when people should tell one word as association on some word which expresses a concept. For example, crime. Crime, it's a one-word expression for concept crime, and people should write 5 rare associations or 6 or only one association on word crime. And then, for example, we have 100 respondents or 70 respondents. It depends on the research, on the size of concrete research, and then we study it we study frequencies of the words, and we do cognitive attributes and cognitive layers. It depends on frequency. For example, in the concept crime, and which has expression, the word crime, we find cognitive attributes, legal definitions of a crime, punishment, and so on. I give only examples of the research of concepts. And cognitive layers, it's bigger groups, and it concludes cognitive attributes. For example, cognitive layers, legal definitions of a crime, will conclude legal definitions of a crime and other cognitive attributes. Then we can do some diagrams, and we can find differences in the concepts for different nations. For example, we did research in the concepts crime between Czech and Russian people, and we find many different. We find much differences. Okay. And when we teach languages, we should teach when we know some factors which influence on teaching. The first is student's nation. Of course, when Slavonic people study Bulgarian language, it's more simple for the students because of similar pronunciation and articulation, and the second, its purpose of learning. Maybe it can be the first, but when we have different nations, it will be big influence on area of study. For example, it's more simple for Czech people to understand Russian times, but for English people it's more difficult. And the third is how long students will have a course. For example, if it's only for 1 month, it will be intensive and express course, and and next, students' nationality and where students live, because it's more simple for students to study language, for example, Czech language when they live in Czech Republic, because they meet realias and they meet people and they communicate with these people. And the next is students' profession and occupation, and teachers' nationality, because it's better when teacher is a native speaker. When we teach languages, we should not only translate some words from other language to another, from one language to another, because we should explain traditions and cultures, and cognitive linguistics deal with the concepts, and in the cognitive linguistics we do some dictionaries of the concepts, and it can help to teachers to study languages, because they have some areas, some results of studying concepts, of studying concrete concepts, and they can tell its students, and it will be it will be faster, and it can help it with their their lessons. And thank you for your attention, and if you will have some questions, I'll be glad to answer it.
So thank you for your talk, and it's time for questions, discussion.
Okay, thank you for the talk. Just a very quick question. When you study the definition of crime, did it occur to you that why didn't you use the concept of prototype in cognitive linguistics? It's just a very short question.
Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, when you were discussing the concept of crime, I was just actually thinking about the idea of prototype. Does that mean anything to you? Prototype. It's a central notion in cognitive linguistics when you discuss crime.
We have research in Czech people and Russian people, and we have 70 respondents from Russian and Czech people of different education, age, and sex.
Okay.
And they tell us 5 associations on the one-word expression crime, and then we study these frequencies of these words, and we underline cognitive attributes and cognitive layers, and we have this diagram, such a course and periphery of this concept.
Thank you for your talks. I think what Dr. Liu means would be like if when talking about the idea of crime, if we put in like how we think about this idea in different nations with different people, like
differences
yes,
in concept.
and
Yeah,
maybe there is
I have not
difference.
enough time for it, but one moment, please. For example, Czech people write theft of like association for the word crime, for the concept crime, and I think we think that it connects with reals because we think that theft is more often in Czech Republic. And not so often, maybe not so often in Europe, in other countries in Europe. And for example, the most common association for Russian people, it was punishment, and we can suppose that Russian write punishment and think about punishment not it was connected not with law punishment, but in moral punishment, and it connect with church, because for example 80% in Russian people are Christians, and in Czech Republic 70% of people are atheists. And Russians have precedent text, crime and punishment, and we think that it has influence on Russians' association, that they they wrote punishment, and maybe they connect it with this text. And for example, associations of Russian people was more emotional, because Russia, this country in eastern world. This country is in eastern world, and for Eastern people, in behavior is more common emotionalities, but more aggressive in their behavior. And for example, for Europe people, for Czech people, it was more common association, like law and jurisdictional associations, because they connect it with law and with types of crime, but with types of crime which connect with law.
So basically, you think that when thinking about crime, actually, Russian people and Czech people, they have different idea about this this word, or are they simply the same?
This word is different for Russian and Czech people. They have other words for it.
Okay, are there any other questions, comments? If not, thank you again.